Welcome, everybody, to Legit Leadership Live, episode 11. I am super psyched to have you here. I can't believe we are in November 2021. This is insane. I'm joined here by our amazing guest for today, Atul Prashar. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And for those of you who are joining, I would say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We have some folks from around the world, which is really exciting. And in terms of Legit Leadership Live, just as a kind of reminder, I started this series to gather some really awesome leaders in different fields to hear what it's like to lead teams, to hear what it's like to be leaders in their own industries, and to get some learnings and nuggets and kind of anecdotes and life stories of real talk kind of behind the scenes. So I'm happy to have you here, Atul, to make it happen for episode 11.
Wow, 11. That's great.
Yeah. So to get started, I mean, we have a lot to dive into. Super psyched about that. To get started, can you give folks a little bit of an overview of who you are? What are you up to these days? And I'm happy to fill in the holes with some of your awesome bio points.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Raabia. You're amazing. My name's Atul Prashar. I've been here in the New York City area for 18 plus years now, and I'm originally from the Chicago area. So, my childhood was consumed with people, our superstars from Chicago, Michael Jordan, Walt Disney, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly. We only brag about two of those folks anymore. So just let, but hey, it was a part of my childhood. And I have to say for you, Raabia, you're amazing. So we have mutual friends. We finally connected, I think, a few weeks ago for the first time on phone, and just like this. And I'm excited for things to come after this as well. But you're like a sister that I don't have a direct sister, but it'd be kind of fun and cool to have one like you. It'd be kind of cool.
I'm right there.
So my career, it spans tech, entertainment, and finance. So that's what it's been for that chunk of 18 years, as I've described. And it's culminated in a fund. So early on, I was a developer, techie developer, go figure. And then I jumped into the entertainment industry. I wrote and produced music, sang on a lot of music that was placed in a lot of TV shows on all the major networks, a couple of Bollywood films, a couple of urban artists on some record labels. You can find that. You can Google a lot of that. And now I'm in the finance industry for the last 10, 11 years. I've been blessed, to be frank about that. I've been blessed to kind of, all of it's kind of culminated and allowed me to kind of bring these distinct skill sets together and kind of identify emerging trends. And I enjoy putting this kind of content out, hopefully to, help people be the smarter person at the water cooler, and myself as well, frankly. I can jump into a little bit. I want us to, my whole goal of all of this is I want all of us to kind of be better investors, investing in ourselves, whether that's earning skill sets or whatever, and public and private markets, investing in those as well. I love that. And let's kind of do that. I can jump into KMH Group and all that later. I could do that now as well. You call it.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start with this? And thank you for that intro. And I've been Googling. I'm like, oh, who is this cool guy? He's a total star. And I would love to know, maybe we can start here, Atul, like, how is your unique experiences, or how have they, rather, as a hedge fund analyst, a music producer, investor, entrepreneur, and now social philanthropist can't talk today, philanthropist. How has all of that informed your perspective on leadership and what it is to show up as a leader in these kind of respective industries?
Yeah. So amazing ways, right? And we've been fun. After you've been around for a while, you can aggregate these skill sets. They help form all the other decisions and all the other things that you can kind of seek out in other potential partners as far as partnering with for opportunities and wealth. I think the beauty of it is I've noticed that, hey, there are certain traits that just kind of help people flourish in any industry they're in. And that's kind of someone that's assertive, not aggressive, not overly aggressive, but assertive, someone who can kind of get down and can see. I love working with people, and I've noticed that this helps achieve kind of great outcomes more often than not, is someone that can get in, think high level strategically, and then also delve deep and get into the details in their actual vertical. And then find other people who complement their skill sets to help them kind of, let's get this aggregated, wholesome, holistic achievement together. That's what I've kind of noticed. And I think I've always kind of lent towards people who have some sort of expertise in tech, finance, or kind of some sales, because that's an area that I need some complementary in, the sales, especially sales and marketing. And I always kind of lean towards those types of folks. And I find that those folks, you have those three kind of skill sets, you can do fairly well in almost any industry.
Yeah. And then tell us a little bit about in terms of connecting with other leaders and even what the journey has been like to better understand and recognize where you could in fact use a complementary partner, or maybe it's not like your biggest strong suit, but you're like, you know what, I could link up with someone. Like, what's that been like, that self-awareness journey for you?
It's been fantastic because it's helped me. If I kind of have distinct silos in my kind of career or anything I want to achieve, and I see what do I need to have in this toolkit to kind of achieve that outcome, and I see what I can bring to the table, what someone else can bring better than I can, and where I can bring something that they maybe kind of need a complementary aspect to. And that's how a lot of the teams I've been a part of have kind of flourished. Teams that I have been a part of that have not flourished have had something or not, that something that doesn't, the success doesn't normalize across everyone, or the resources put in, and that
Yeah.
can be kind of troublesome. And you have to we can get into that later as far as how to navigate those types of troublesome situations.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's on the list of things I wanted to ask you about, because I imagine, and maybe we can kind of dig into that a little bit. Like, when it comes to these, and it's not just the industries that you've been affiliated with or that you've kind of been an expert in, but when it comes to multiple industries, there are a lot of personalities, whether it's in show business or music production or hedge funds. Like, those are some, kind of the archetype. You have a lot of different personalities. There's a lot of creativity, maybe some power plays as well. Can you share with us a little bit about what's it been like navigating, what are some challenges that you've dealt with and come across, and how do you navigate those interpersonal dynamics where there might even be some ego involved, or like, I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
I'm going to answer this in a counter way than probably you're anticipating. So I'm going to look at it from, hey, look, let's go from a small, or like a startup level, an early stage company, and then the leaders involved there and navigating those relationships, and then maybe look into larger organizations. So I always do this. And I've done a lot of these kind of talks, and I always mention this. I always want to see if a leader can win a bullpit or a bullpen battle. And what do I mean by that? So you're launching some new company or a new service or product or idea, and I want to know that I can drop you into a bullpit with 5 folks: marketing, tech, finance, accounting, whatever they are, HR, and someone that you all know that understand that there's a common challenge, and
Hmm.
that you solely, if I drop you in there, you have the one of the best outcomes. You can say, my solution to this, my service or product that I'm offering is the right solution, and I'm the right person to execute on that. And I want to know that you can't get out of that room until you convince those 4 or 5 other folks. I use that as kind of when I'm looking to say, hey, who do I invest alongside, or who do I want to invest in? I want to see that kind of tenacity and that kind of hunger in folks. And then on the flip side, because and if they can build out a team of all A+ people in the early stage companies, you're 5 to 10 folks. Sometimes then it grows and it becomes 20, 100, whatever it is. When you're 5 to 10 people, everyone needs to be A+ performer. When you're in a larger organization, you'll have your 5 to 10% who are A+. You'll have another 20, 25% A level. Then you'll have maybe 50, 60% are B. They're the solid B, but you can afford to have that we're doing this through LinkedIn, so I won't mention the actual companies because you can go look at them. But any larger conglomerate, you can afford to have that. I've been a B performer in a large company before because it wasn't my passion, right? I've been A+ in things that I've really loved, and I've seen that in others as well. Like, okay, if you really believe in what you're working on and the outcome to what you're trying to achieve, you'll be an A+ performer. And you need that, especially in those early stage companies. Larger corporations, you can kind of hide in silos, but you really want to kind of continue to thrive, small or medium or large, you want to be an A+ performer.
Yeah. And then in your mind, when it comes to figuring out, hey, is this person an A+ performer? Can I actually, can we put the money where the mouth is here and invest? Like, what happens along the way if perhaps you see the potential, but then they're not performing in the way that you would hope? Like, what's that like for you in those moments? How do you kind of, is there a fork in the road? Do you like, what decisions do you find yourself making then?
So it's incredibly difficult to navigate those types of situations. You go in, I've been a part of teams where let's say it's 5, 6 people, and I'll how can I do this and be PC? So I've been a part of teams where, hey, we all went in with a singular focus, right? And then let's say, okay, this is what we want to achieve, and boom, how do we need to get there? And over time, it becomes apparent that not everybody can be a Michael Jordan or a Beyonce. Let's go with Beyonce. That's simple, right? Not everyone can be a Beyonce on a team. But what can be beautiful, if there is a Beyonce on your team, an elite performer, then Michelle, who's actually Michelle Williams, is from the town I grew up and I'm born and raised in, northwestern Chicago. You can have them, or a Kelly Rowland, and then previously the other two, they can say, okay, well, Beyonce, we've tried this, we've tried to match Beyonce, but she's the star. Let's provide something complementary, because there's probably something Beyonce is lacking. I don't know what, but there might be something lacking that they can complement on, right? That they could be. But if you're looking at a performance of Destiny Child back in the day, you would be solely looking at Beyonce. Now she hasn't been around, she hasn't done enough. Rihanna's kind of more of the superstar. But if you look at that, not everyone can perform at Beyonce level. So then you have to make a decision. If you're trying everything, you're pooling, let's say it's a 5-person team and you're one person pooling in 60% of the efforts, the relationships, which everything's built on, the resources. You have to make a decision yourself. Why are you trying to embark on this initiative? And what are you trying to achieve? If it's to have fun, continue doing it, right? And if it doesn't take away from other priorities, but then you're also stealing time from other priority initiatives that you should be, or you may want to be a part of. So there's that opportunity cost. So then I've been a part of those kind of decisions, and they're hard decisions to make. You're friends with everyone on the team, but you know that it's capped unless you get other inputs involved, and it doesn't. And you might have to make a turn or hire more correctly in the future for those kind of roles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like, do I want to serve in that complementary role and maybe be a backup singer in a way, or do I want to be the show stealer or showstopper and do my own thing, or find another organization or a place where I can show up in that way and I can kind of, I could be a bird outside of a cage essentially and spread my wings.
Yeah, and if you're trying to achieve this collective greatness, everyone, you find your roles, and you think it may be different than what you thought your role was going to be initially, but you find it over time, a year, 2, 3 years in, and then, hey, let's nail that, and then hopefully try to expand our roles to reach, so we can all reach and then normalize the success and the input level, the resources being pulled in.
Yeah, for sure. So, Atul, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is this idea of profit for purpose. And I know that is a huge element of your mindset. We're talking about investing in leaders. I first of all would love to know, how do you decide what you want to invest in? What are some of the hot topic things? But what does that essentially mean? How do you integrate that principle into investing in these leaders who may turn out to be Beyonce's or Kelly Rowland's at the end of the day?
Yeah, so I'll delve into, there are 2 initiatives that I really want, and let's bucket them in that social impact space, right? So gender equality and sustainability are kind of issues near and dear to my heart. And one of them was born because the gender equality issue, because I was kind of, quite frankly, ignorant to something I didn't. Some of my friends were producers on a film called Sold, and I know the director, and we saw that it was about sex trafficking in Asia, right? And then I had no idea what was going on, what scale and how it happened, how broken these people became. Wow. That was a wake-up call for me. This might have been 8-10 years ago now. And then I started working with some groups locally here in the New York area, and then I noticed that, it's actually happening here too. I had no idea. So this is a global pandemic in a sense, and it needs to be kind of rectified, but it needs a lot of resources. So what we were doing is we are allotting resources and our relationships towards groups that are kind of fighting that good fight. And then I want to go, and I'll be the first to admit this, I want to build, and I haven't gotten anywhere near my goal, but I want to build like laboratories for schools, so then all genders can stay in school in rural pockets of India. I'm starting there. And then so there's not an education parity, which then leads to income parity and all of that throughout their lives. So those are the kind of initiatives that we kind of endorse. Now, flipping back to the investment side, there is again, how do I do this? There was a huge opportunity that became available a few years ago, and it was a $500 million joint venture deal where 3-4 partners, we actually aggregated the capital. We failed to materialize because the company went into bankruptcy, but it was the founder was just a horrible person and had been known for certain things in that space. You can Google it and you'll probably know what I'm talking about, most people listening. And then our initiative was, hey, if we're bringing the capital to buy that person's assets, we are then going to create like a $40, $50 million fund within that 500. So 10%, roughly 8 to 10% of that would be towards gender equality initiatives, right? And help supporting them. And then a platform where the she and he can stand together and kind of fight the good fight. Because it's an every person problem, not just a 50% of the people problem.
Of course.
So those are the kind of things we were fighting for. So I was seeking that. That's a very direct, kind of to answer your question, that was a very direct initiative we had taken. Okay, we're going to invest in this project, and then a lot of it, some of the portion of the capital towards this endeavor. Others, we just kind of seek our capital. So my wife and I just personally will just pool in our own capital, and it goes in ebbs and flows. As we get busy with family, we pull back and have to kind of, as to how much we can volunteer or, support some of these causes. And then, once we do it, now we're going to actually put it up, because both our kids, our sons, we want them to see what we're doing. They hear us talking about it, me running around talking smack in the home, but I want them to actually inherit, oh, hey, mom and dad care about these causes, and this is what they're doing to rectify them. I want them to see that. They're young, so hopefully we can get them into that.
Totally. And this almost sounds like an obvious answer, but I'd really love your insights here. What do you think when we kind of project into the future, 10, 15, 20 years from now, where your sons and the kids of all my cousins have kids, my friends and family have kids, my sister, right? Pretty soon they're going to be the young leaders that are taking over. What's the benefit, or what do you think is let me rephrase that. What do you think is the risk of not exposing them to some of these kind of behaviors and actions and kind of ideals that you and your wife and and our generation essentially is working on?
The risk is great question. So look, the risk of me not knowing it earlier on was then I wouldn't have pooled all these resources the last 10 years towards it. So I woke up when I saw this movie that kind of displayed this happens, and I asked around, and these things happen, right? And then sustainability is another issue. And global, what is it called? Global World Day that Leonardo DiCaprio heads. It's always right around my birthday. It's Earth Day, I think. It's April 22nd, day after. So that's been near and dear as well. We have to kind of share with them that these are things happening. So you can start when they're young. Okay, hey, we don't need to buy you a 5th sweatshirt or your 5th pair of shoes, because look at the water and all this that goes into making them. And then maybe some other kind of labor laws globally, right? So let's kind of peel back some of that. Spend your money, but maybe put it towards something else that's not just benefiting yourself, maybe benefiting others as well. Exposing them is important so they actually know. My parents, my wife's parents, I'm just going to lose those two examples, did a wonderful job exposing us to what they're doing. They're committed to their communities and beyond back here, Chicago area for them, and then, back home in India as well. So you have to expose them and kind of keep teaching them, and then watch documentaries with them and show them, hey, the outcomes of some of these circumstances or some of these activities that we're partaking in. Wow, we're going deeper than I thought we would. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. You said you wanted to join, so here we go.
I came here to talk about finance and sports, but okay.
No, I appreciate that. Well, and I think it's all connected, Atul, because what you're focusing on is it's not just making money. That's not what you're in it for. It's not solely the driver. It's great to do that, and that's an added byproduct and a really important aspect. But I love how intentional your investments are, that whole profit for purpose. And one of the things that I know you mentioned is, a hot button topic, and we have folks from different industries all who are tuning in today, which I'm super psyched about. You have your network tuning in also. You mentioned that blockchain, crypto, NFTs, the metaverse. This is like literally a foreign language for me, but from the ecosystem to ops investing in space, like, when you think about the future, when you think about the opportunities now and future generations who are going to be our leaders, tell us a little bit about what that world, maybe in layman's terms, what that world is like and why you are paying attention to it.
Yeah. So let's start a few things. The reason that I became very interested in the last year or so, and I'm late to the game, right? And then there are people that are later than me, and there are people who are much earlier than I, right? Who are kind of telling me this is coming several years ago, and I didn't pay attention. I thought that's crazy, and now you're seeing it. You kind of, okay, so the easy thing is say, look where the money's going. So that's going to come from a capital perspective initially. There's a lot of many institutional investors are pouring money into this whole metaverse, crypto, blockchain, the entire system. Many things make sense, right? I'm going to give you 3 nuggets here. Let's break this into a few nuggets, right? Well, we'll get into the metaverse in a moment, but let's first say someone piggybacking with you, we were talking about my kids and what we can expose them to. Let's talk about like, hey, if you're a young person listening to Raabia and you're part of her leadership legit series, if you're a techie, or if you're not, become one. Have some component of techiness to you. Because I will say, there's three things, right? So previously, the last 2 decades, and I'm going to get to your answer in a moment, but I think this is a good setup for it. The past 2 decades have been controlled by kind of innovators and capital suppliers, right? So financiers, right? People investing in the innovative ideas. A lot of the innovation now, and that could have been in any industry, now is becoming very clear that tech is going to be a huge part of it. And not just, it was always a huge part for the past 2 decades, absolutely. Now it's a huge part of every industry. It's industry agnostic, right? In a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, moving forward, then I think tech is going to have a larger pull than the other things. And then finance will just be pooling their resources towards making that innovation happen. So supporting it from an early get-go to help it scale and all that. So I think as a young person, here's the second part of what I want to say before I get into the real deal. If you're not in a tech role right now, that's absolutely fine, but just have some sort of tech sense about you, learn about it, read about it, learn how it makes things work. And I think if you're, especially if you're young, let's say if you're working at some large conglomerate, again, I'm not going to be naming any names of the larger conglomerates, like 10,000, 100,000 employees, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a tech person, go work at a startup or a smaller company for 2 years. You can become vested. You'll get some equity in the company potentially. And then maybe flip that every couple of years because there's a potential that one of them may hit big. And then on the flip side, if you're a techie at an Airbnb, not even Airbnb, earlier than that, an earlier company than that, if you're a techie there versus at a large conglomerate, tech recruiters, when they come and look at your profile, will say, well, this person had a wide range of roles at this smaller company. And it was an exciting company that was trying to scale and break things and try to move into this innovative space. We'll look at them maybe that over someone that is in a large conglomerate for 5-6 years. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now let's get to the metaverse, right? Metaverse is literally, you're hearing about Facebook has renamed themselves as Meta. They're just one entrant into this portal. We'll go into this metaverse. There's one of going to be many, but they have a lot of capital, so they have a good shot, right, of attaining some success in the space, and I think they will. So the metaverse is literally, it's digital coordinates in the digital world, right, on Web 3.0, which we're designing. So we've had, the metaverse has been around for almost 20 years now, 2003, 2004. It's been in video games though. What you're seeing now and why it's exploding and a lot of people are interested is because of smart contracts that were allowed by the blockchain, right? So now you can stamp. Blockchain has been this advent and is beautiful. It's going to just disrupt everything. You've heard that. I'm not telling you anything new. It's been around for a while. So everything needs to be applied there because everything is transparent. And then you can go back and forth about whether you want decentralized or centralized. That's someone else's battle. But you can invest around it because there are good cases for both of those, pros and cons for that. You want control, you don't want a complete lack of control. That's another question. But because of blockchain, the metaverse, because of right now, Ethereum has allowed for smart contracts to just basically smart digital stamps on a blockchain that everyone can see that can't be manipulated after it's been done. Right. So then it allows some trust and some integrity. So now you're going to see, and I think you and I chatted about this last time in the metaverse, right? We have Times Square in our backyard here. In Times Square in our backyard here. And there's the 2021 version of it. Well, the 80s version of the Times Square was completely different. Let's just put it that way. There's a lot of seedy things you could have gotten involved with or seen when you just walk down the streets, right? Don't walk down Broadway. It'd be kind of cool in a digital metaverse that you get to have 2021 Times Square, and then the 1980s, you could just enter another set of digital, your avatar, whatever it is, could kind of literally walk over digitally to the 1980s version of Times Square, and it's next to the 90s in 2010. Now, where am I going with all this?
Brands are really cool, by the way. What a visual.
Yeah, and then just think about this. So there's brands are going to have a field day. So there are nostalgic brands that are being gobbled up that are just kind of distressed assets, meaning they're lower value than they were, let's say 5-10 years ago, right? They're worth less. Well, they're worth less in the physical world. Now someone's going and acquiring, look at authentic brands. They went and acquired Reebok, right? Reebok hasn't done as well as it did in the 80s and 90s. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to knock the company. Adidas acquired them to try to have an American footprint to compete with Nike. And then they bought them for $4 billion, just sold them off for $2 billion to Authentic Brands. They took a $2 billion loss, and foregoing everything that they spent in the meantime while they owned the company. Authentic Brands, tell me to slow down whenever I need to, because I know I talk really fast.
No, this is fascinating. I was like, wait, I have Reebok's classics right now in my closet. So this is
you're cool. All right.
Yeah.
It's your tracksuit. So
Exactly.
just think about it, right? If in a digital world, then Authentic Brands, who now owns that asset, they can now make digital recreations of them. They also own give you an idea, Authentic Brands also owns Elvis Presley's estate, the assets, Marilyn Monroe, Shaq, who's living still, obviously. A lot of cool brands under that umbrella, and they just monetizing them. So in the physical world, in the digital world, in the metaverse, they can say, oh, the 80s version exists. Let's create a pop-up store in that 80s version. You can go buy avatars or Reebok sneakers or Reebok jacket, whatever it is, and put it on your avatar, and you can flex. It's just another way to flex, right? And then there are other things you're going to be able to do. There's going to be, those are the trivial things. Brands will get involved, but then you're going to have school, you're going to have education, you're going to be, let's say my wife and I took a trip to Spain, and then we came back, and then we didn't get to meet some friends who then went to Spain about 2 weeks later. Let's act like we're going to meet up in some whiskey bar or something, or some wine bar. And then, and then we can do this like we're in Zoom, but then we can actually purchase physical goods as well.
Oh my goodness.
Digital goods that can translate to physical goods, right? Nike is doing some sort of digital iteration in this space as well. I'll stop right there because I know I probably threw a lot at you. Ask me to tone it down or slow it down, whatever you need.
No, this is great. Well, thanks for sharing all that. And I guess my question for you is, seeing that, virtual reality and the connection to products and services, that's all going to be, it sounds like, the new normal X number of years from now, or that's kind of the direction we're heading. And my question for you is, because we know we're talking about legit leadership, what do you think are some of the essential things that leaders of those companies need to be able to exemplify, to look out for? And by the way, this could be people in the C-suite, managerial roles. It could be investors. Like, what's going to be different, or what's going to be the same when we think about all these amazing updates that the Jetsons flying cars, essentially, that we're heading into?
Since this is completely digital, understand how culture and tech meet. Right? If you can find folks who can actually, they inhibit those traits themselves, and they can find out how to monetize those kind of opportunities, culture and tech, it's going to explode in the metaverse, right? So find folks who are tech savvy or tech adjacent, let's say. They understand it but don't want to code or know how to code. Find people who are interested in that space, but then they understand culture and how to utilize brands and the power of brands, maybe. And then that's going to be a huge thing. So those kind of folks who can then talk the talk of it. Look, not only do you have to look at the younger folks, because Glossier was a brand that was launched for millennials. Well, Gen Z doesn't probably want to play with Glossier in the metaverse, right? They may want some other crypto native brand to launch, just like Glossier launched for millennials. Glossier is going to play in the metaverse. Don't come after me, Glossier. but I'm assuming Gen X and the generations after them are going to want something that feels their own, right? So understand how tech and culture compete and play together, and then actually how to monetize that in another world. Physical world's obviously not going away, right? So, and then you can offer something, find opportunities that you can kind of create new revenue models in this metaverse, and then have them translate back to the physical world. Like, can I jump into one other game that's actually doing this? Axie Infinity is a game that was launched in the Philippines, and it allowed people, so it was expensive to get in. You buy these tokens, I think it's like you have to buy 3 or 4 of them. So it ends up being like $1,200-$1,500 to actually get an entry point. Some people can't afford that. So what some people were doing is, maybe some people who had that kind of capital, they would buy these up, and then they would rent them out technically, say, hey, you play in this video game, and as you go along in this game, you utilize these tokens, you collect things that can then be monetized and cashed out for real cash. So they were basically getting people who played video games all day, technically, and maybe there's something you're learning some sort of skill set, but they're playing these things and they're acquiring assets that can be liquidated into real cash. And then they're splitting those commissions with those people. So it's empowering people, younger people. It may be detracting people from wanting to go get a regular job that they may have when they're 15, 16, 20 years old. That's going to be another issue we're going to have to deal with, because they can sit home and play these games all day, right?
And still make a ton of money. Yeah, totally.
And it's empowering people. Now, is there a discrepancy? I don't know if it's going to have a socioeconomic, if it's going to solve that parity, because it's still someone that has capital that has to initially get the coins to get in themselves, or they maybe lease them out. So some people will be in power, but you might still have another widening of the gap there. So that has to be solved as well.
Yeah.
But these are all things I kind of sit there and think about when I'm looking at investment opportunities.
I love that. And, we talk about widening the gap and also closing the gap to whatever degree possible. And I know, Atul, like as you're explaining all this, there's like the possibilities are endless. It sounds like when we look into the future, or you look into your crystal ball and like 10, 20, however many years from now. And in terms of that gap, I know one of the key areas that you are, or there's several areas you're really passionate about. It includes diversity, gender equality, and global sustainability issues. So what do you see happening to those gaps in this world in the near future, essentially, with all these, the metaverse and the crypto and all that?
That's a great question. It's a wide question, wide-ranging responses I could give to that. So do these okay, so the blockchain and some of these currencies, sorry, I should say protocols, or so there's like, let's say Bitcoin and Ethereum. Ethereum is very energy intensive, as is Bitcoin. Solana is a counter to it, which is less energy intensive because you can do more transactions per second. I'm throwing terms out there, but those are simply put. We have to get Ethereum is proving they're changing their model. Just to put it simply, they're changing their model, so they're utilizing less energy to prove what they've done in the past. So then it's still transparent at a cheaper level, meaning not as an energy intensive. Just to make it very simplistic, proof of stake versus proof of work, right? So look, these folks are very innovative. So they want to create these. I think they're going to continue down the path of trying to make this as efficient as possible. They don't want to just keep burning down, let's say, the forest to make these things happen, because you need to have them at scale to have them adopted by the masses and have these useful use cases for everyone to want these, so then scale, and then these opportunities exist for 10, 20 years versus just being a fickle in everyone's imagination and falling down, right? So they have to get that energy thing in blank, but they're actually incentivized to do that. They just need Wi-Fi access. To be honest with you, they can go in some remote forest, hanging out near where Henry David Thoreau was long ago. They could go in a remote forest. They just need airware. They don't need high energy to run it. They just need, they don't need high bandwidth as far as Wi-Fi to run these things. They can be anywhere. So they can actually go away from urban centers where it's higher energy intensive, and maybe go in remote areas, and then maybe help develop other pockets of the world as well. So I think they're going to, as they continue to offer other opportunities, they're incentivized to make it less energy intensive. So that'll help, right? Kind of fight the cost, because it impedes them, because that also then increases their margins as far as to earn revenues as well. So they want to get these things in order, and I think they might solve things quicker than maybe some of the larger electronic companies as well.
Got it. And so it sounds like it kind of levels the playing field a little bit, or there's more opportunities to level the playing field and open up access to these developmental opportunities around the globe. So not just across gender necessarily and diversity, but in terms of sustainability, it also sounds like there's a bit of more of a conscientious and environmental friendly kind of mindset, because there's all the climate conferences going on. There's we can't ignore that it's an issue moving forward. Yeah. And am I correct in kind of understanding that even more so when we move forward in investing in these types of opportunities, that's going to be top of mind, because that's also what the consumer is demanding?
I hope so. I hope there's a vortex where they all meet. I think initially it's going to be a land grab, and not maybe the most efficient manner. I think that's true of any industry as it's launching, and you're trying to scale. You're not efficient early on, right? But as it kind of settles and becomes normalized, I think they will try to make this as efficient as possible, just for the reasons I just laid out. But initially, it might seem wasteful, which is what all the people who think it's the cons about it are saying. Hey, it's very inefficient. But that's true of any industry at launch. Right. And if you look through history, any industry was not as efficient as it was 50 years later, 20 years later, even, right? They figure out ways to make it easier and more efficient to run. and less harm to the people around them generally, right? We know there are cases where obviously looks like Cindy has some great input here. I've seen Cindy. Some companies still need to rein in some things. We know that.
Yeah.
I think the further component, getting outside of this whole space, is just countries need to work together. This Paris Climate Accord was set. Countries need to do their part, and it looks like it was going in a certain direction. It may not be. It may be. Who knows? I do think we'll find more efficient ways to kind of just do transactions and do anything in life over time, and then you're going to have less. Okay, so let's look at the Elons and the Jeff Bezos of the world, right? Elon Musk wants to go to live on Mars. Bezos wants to maybe take waste from Earth and leave it in space, right? So they have separate initiatives apart from their kind of commercial play. So that could be an opportunity, right? You take waste from Earth and kind of drop it off in space, which makes it kind of more dangerous to fly around in space, but it's vast, right? So there are those opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's interesting when we think about the environment, and also like we were talking about diversity too. One of the things that I love that we connected on is not just like, oh, we're both South Asian, so we're going to be friends. Yeah. But I know you were sharing as well, like you have your own podcast, you know, your name is out there, you're doing speaking engagements. And what have you found, and whether that's connected to the investment space, but in terms of diversity, I know one of the things you mentioned is, you know, we talk about black and brown, but then there's this there are different hues of, and I would love to hear your take on why do you think, well, what do you think you're seeing these days when it comes to any shifts in terms of whether it's South Asian diversity or other kind of lenses of diversity, and how are you doing your part to kind of integrate that into your business and how you lead teams?
Yeah, great question. So it's happening. It's increasing, right? And it doesn't need to be a pro or a con to anyone. It's a pro. You look at it that way, right? No one is stepping on anyone else's feet to get ahead. We're all just trying to win in this larger pool that keeps increasing. So I like diverse thought. I need it. I need people that think differently than you. I'm sure you and your team have people who think differently than you. They're there for a reason. For that reason,
Totally.
Right? So it behooves us if we don't seek that out. So I love that, because there are different cultures. I attended some huge executive leadership program that was all about this. It was a year-long program, 10-month program. And it kind of opens your eyes as to how other cultural segments of America see things and view things differently and experience things differently. Everyone's dealt with like their own variation of anything bad that can happen, like racism and all of that kind of stuff. But like, I like how we're all kind of collaborating to move it forward and make the effort forward. Now, I think what I do love is achieve greatness before you celebrate. Because if you celebrate first, and okay, or you make a first couple, whatever, make X amount, and you kind of celebrate it, you're not done. Keep going, right? And then set an example for others. And I like that. We actually, it's funny thing is, we just on the Whiskey Hue, we just recorded an episode about just the first time ever, probably last time ever, like, hey, because in October there was some Indian kind of heritage month or something related to it that a cousin had brought up. So we just did an episode about South Asians in business in America, right? And all that was because the infrastructure was here and it was built well here, right? In America, Europe, Western cultures, right? Western, and South Asian groups came and kind of, we had these kind of, tiger moms and dads, right? They kind of pushed us, STEM down our throat, and that's what you're going to do. And we said, okay. And, kind of made for a scary childhood, but then it worked out. Right?
Look where we ended up. Yeah.
Right. So, and I think, and I want to employ it to everyone I speak with, like, no matter white, black, brown, wherever you're from, just incorporate incorporate the good of what we're talking about and try to incorporate that into your life and actually act on it and do good. And then we can have less of this, hey, this is mine, that's yours type of thing. Let's just kind of move forward. So you do need these diverse ideas at the table to kind of help progress the whole community forward. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And I have to say, I'm every time, our family friends will meet together, and I'm at my parents' family friends, and they have young kids, and I'm like, they're like, well, Raabia, I want to major in X, but my parents say that I should do lawyer or doctor or engineer. I'm like, come on, man, my generation's already dealt with that. I was like, I did my MA and my BA in history, and I'm doing fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be the biggest.
You're a rock star. You're killing it, right?
Yeah.
So.
Thanks.
Well, the cool thing is, so, and it was always that doctor, engineering, lawyer, right? And lawyer came
Right.
even later. So doctor, it was all STEM first, and then
Awesome.
lawyers were,
Yeah.
and then now you see like diverse cultures of every diaspora flourishing in media and entertainment, technology,
Yeah.
lawyers, healthcare, whatever it is beyond that. So it's the genuine skill set, the traits, the hardworking ethic, and the
Yeah.
understanding of, hey, let's embrace kind of this changing environment that continues. Metaverse, we weren't even talking about 5 years ago. Just in that example,
Yeah.
we weren't.
Yeah.
But it's been around for 18 years, and now it's on a huge scale globally. And watch out, right? So
Fascinating.
just
Yeah.
I think just for our kids and even adults who don't maybe are slower to embrace this, we need these new different ideas of thought to kind of help progress the whole community forward.
Totally. Yeah.
Help fill in. That's all.
Yeah, totally. No, I love it. And Atul, you mentioned something also about Glossier and the millennials, right? They're different generations. This is and you probably know this. This is the first time in all of global history that we have 5 generations working side by side with one another in the workplace.
Oh,
And
that's incredible. Yeah.
it's incredible. You think of
Yeah.
your parents, and then you'll think of, your kids, soon they'll be entering the workplace, and all kind of mesh together. And as we know, some organizations might only be looking to hire their generation, but the reality of that is, the reality really is that we're kind of having to figure out how to integrate. So I'm curious to know, in your experience, because I do a lot of work around multi-generational leadership as well,
Mhm.
in terms of investments, and also thinking about the companies that you're really advocating for and that you're investing in. When it comes to the multi-generation, or the generational pieces, how do you navigate that? Or what are even some of the biggest kind of challenges you might see, in terms of like the different players in the game?
That's a great question. How do I answer that? So I've worked with, so in the last 10 years, most of the teams we worked with have been smaller, right? So,
Mm,
and they're all around a singular initiative, people taking risks, but those age groups have been different. The most successful startups are not from a 20-year-old generally. I mean, aside from Facebook and a couple of these, right? But generally, they're from people who've actually accumulated some sort of expertise in traditional markets, right, in corporate structures, and then they've kind of, okay, I want to take a chance on this because I see a market gap that I think with my experience and my relationships, can help fill. So you'll see the most successful kind of even younger companies, emerging companies, come from 40 and 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds. There's space for everyone to play. And if you don't want to work at a Snapchat when you're 65, that's perfectly fine. Launch something that makes sense for you, because there's probably some opportunity there. So the way it's never been an issue, and I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this. It's never been an issue for someone like me, because everyone has been kind of, and we've actually had, hey, everyone is bringing something amazing to the table, so let's respect everyone that's here. So I've never had to deal with it in a blunt manner. And Robbie, I think you jumped for a second, but so I've never had to deal with that in that play. So just okay. I don't know if we're still here, but Cindy, are you still there? Just say yes. um, so investors, so let's say if you're someone from let's say if you're an older generation and you want to invest in some of the newer emerging trends, I've always seen that as a way that groups can partner, right? So let's say someone's 40, 50, 60, and they don't want to create the next great tech play, but they are attending a lot of these meetings. Hey, Cindy, great. Thank you. So they're attending a lot of these meetings where a lot of folks are kind of pitching and presenting ideas that kind of they think will change the future. Well, if you're someone, that's an opportunity to partner. And age does not become a problem, because guess what? Everyone needs each other in that partnership, that relationship. So in our space, the age discrimination has not been as much of an issue. I know it has been in other people's endeavors, but here we are. Oh, somebody's asking, Cindy, I'd love to hear more about what you've learned in the 8-month leadership and diversity group you're part of. So that was so I'll give it a shout out to NAMIC. It's an organization I belong to. I've been on the New York chapter board, and then I did some other things with them. And I run every year for the last 6 years. We've run at their national conference a startup showcase featuring diverse founders, female minorities, and it's pretty high profile, and they do a great job. Naming separately launched this thing called Executive Leadership Development Program. Hey, Raabia, I'm answering a question from Cindy. If you're cool with that. So, Executive Leadership Development Program is phenomenal. I met phenomenal people. They're all from media, entertainment, communications, and we challenged each other. It's kind of like a mini MBA in a year. So I've done an MBA, but this was on top of that. And it was literally what we did in MBA, but compressed. And then you're with 50 rock stars in the room. Everyone's kind of in their mid-level and senior executive kind of positions, and we're challenging each other as far as our teams thought, what is the next approach to streaming wars? We were there when some of these large streamers were acquired by another company, and now we're seeing if I did this in 2018, 2019. So if you do the math, you can see, I think it was, you can do the math and see what it was, but those companies were amazing. And we drew from different perspectives on cultural background. So people had, we found out, everyone kind of, it's not just because you're from one group, you face this. People from every group face different challenges, and then we were able to kind of share how we overcame them in our own way. And everyone in that room had very unique ways to overcome these kind of challenges, right? And it was kind of interesting to learn other people's perspective. That's what I gleaned from that perspective as much. Robbie, but I can tell people where they can find what we're doing. Like Sava 360 Ventures is our kind of venture group, and we invest in kind of media tech plays in the media, entertainment, sports, and space. So work a lot of the leagues that you might know of. In the spring, I'm blessed to launch my first course at Fordham Gabelli School of Business at the MBA. Okay. So I'll be teaching a course called Investing in Tomorrow's Media and Communications Opportunities. So it's streaming wars, crypto, blockchain, connected cars, connected homes. I'm really excited about that opportunity. I also do a slew of these. I'm running, there's a huge thing, FinTech Black. I'm a huge part of next week. Running a lot of podcasts, a lot of athletes turned investors, a lot of cryptos. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, he's a superstar in this space. He's the headliner. I'll be 2-3 tiers below him. I get it. I'll roll with that. He's a superstar. So we're just a lot of conversation around here, this NFT space and fintech, the future of it. We'll be discussing that. And then I run a podcast with some other folks. It's called The Whiskey Hue. We actually sip whiskey every episode, a brand new bottle. We kind of share that experience with everyone. Raabia is going to come on and do it. She told me she likes it. And then we talk about business, tech, and culture. I don't hear you. Okay. So did you type this to Cindy? How do you think about using culture tech interface to address cultural issues such as increased diversity, gender equity, and sustainability? So not just monetize culture, but use it for social good. Curious about that. That's a great question. Cindy, is that from you or is that from Raabia? Is that from Raabia?
Cindy.
Oh, that's from Cindy. Okay. All right. Cindy. It's the Cindy hour. I get it. Okay. Look, I think you can incorporate. So all of these, a lot of new companies are kind of launching new ideas, and I think you can incorporate a lot of personal cultural perspectives into those things. Are there apps that you can kind of blend in there? I'm looking at things from a South Asian guy who grew up northwest of Chicago in Rockford, Illinois. I'm U.S. Born and raised here, but I have a deep connection to where my parents came from, right? I have family there still. So my way of doing it is I want to inject it into, I'm putting up a fund where we kind of invest to see more faces like Raabia and I, behind and on front of screen. There are a lot of those opportunities happening. I think Hassan Minhaj is a phenomenal comedian. I love how he approaches comedy with social opportunities. So we're looking at kind of providing platforms for people like that to kind of get across, let's provide platforms for more of these people, because I think they can really help society and kind of help move it along. So, hey, a lot of the greatest tech developers were from a lot of different minority groups, right? And then we just kind of, so we can just kind of keep sharing those ideas with other folks. I'm incorporating a lot into what we do. It's not, I don't hire solely just because I want to see this one type of person or color or race or whatever to see. I want to get the best person usually, and then I want to get, then that actually plays into my decision making as well. But then whoever that person is, we're well read as we can find out if we want to embrace some sort of certain culture in an app or a tech play or a service. We make sure we cater to that as well. So it's up to us to kind of change that narrative. right?
Any luck?
I can hear you, Raabia. This is Win. This is
You can hear-
I can see you and hear you. This is great. Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for taking over.
Support. Oh my goodness. I literally just shut off. Hey, welcome to tech. Big tech can solve for my computer in the future.
We just got to figure out our real verse versus the metaverse first. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. I know. Thank you so much, Atul. And Cindy, I love you for keeping things moving. You're the best. Well, Atul, I'm so delighted. I think I missed like a little clip of what you were saying when my computer basically exploded, but I know it was awesome and valuable. And I wanted to just ask you maybe a last question, if you're open to it. You've shared a lot of amazing gold nuggets for us to keep in mind as we move forward, and kind of have a lot of things that we're excited to kind of look out for. In terms of kind of any key practical steps for leaders who are up and coming, who are well into their careers, or who are kind of high potential and are trying to navigate the world, which is a very complex place, what maybe final practical tip would you like to offer to the folks who are tuning in?
Great questions. The best executives I've ever worked with always have one of three things: sales, financial acumen, and because sales is about relationships, financial acumen, they always have some play in there. And now it's becoming increasingly tech, an understanding of tech, if not an application in practicality and in theory, at least, right? So if you have those, some combination, you have all three, you're set. If you look across, right? But have some combination of that, and just start today, start now, start working on whatever it is that you want to work on. Don't put it off. Get out there, get inspired, and be inspiring to others, right? And then help achieve, right? So just make it better everywhere you go somewhere new, and just try something different, open your mind, because that's how this, again, metaverse we weren't even thinking about on a grand scale that is being thought of as today. Somebody's going to go and blow that up, like make it amazing, right? And now a lot of companies are. Facebook's going to be one large player probably in a huge multiverse. Get out there and start doing things.
Got it. Yeah. Don't just hang out on the diving board, kind of jump in whatever way you can.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that one. I'm going to use that.
Use it. No, I love it. Atul, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a delight. Thank you for your patience and your agility also with, the tech stuff, and just like, thanks for being you and in inviting us into your world for the last hour. What a delight to learn from you. So it's truly an honor, and folks can find you. I think you shared kind of how they can get in touch. But are you okay if they kind of reach out to you with any questions via LinkedIn or anything else?
Hit me up on LinkedIn. AtulPrashar.com is my website. You can connect with me through there. I put on a blog about a lot of this stuff that I garbled on about and then just check us out. We got the Whiskey Hue podcast. I'm doing a bunch of other things too. So yeah, just Google me. You'll find out. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a delight to see you. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Great. Have a great
Raabia's a rock star. Raabia's a rock star.
Thank you, Atul. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.